Ethan Cole had worked on alien ships before, but never one like the Zalari Dawn. It was huge, with glowing walls that seemed alive, and a constant low hum in the air. Every step he took, the floor shifted slightly under his boots, like it was. Breathing, the alien crew moved around him without speaking much. Their silver eyes always watching. They didn't trust humans, but they needed him. The ship's energy core had been acting strange, and no alien engineer wanted to go near it. They said it was dangerous, unstable, unpredictable. Ethan just called it another day at work when the captain led him to the engine room. Ethan stopped in his tracks. The core wasn't like anything he had seen. It floated in the air, a spinning sphere of light and shadow, wrapped in golden rings that turned slowly. Lightning-like flashes crackled across its surface. The captain's voice was low. "Be careful, human. This device is not like your machines. It does not forgive mistakes." Ethan smirked, trying to hide his nerves. "Relax, I've got this." He unpacked his tools. A mix of human-made scanners and alien wrenches. The core pulsed every few seconds, sending out waves of heat that made him sweat around him. The alien crew whispered in their own language. Ethan caught a few words through his translator. Danger, unstable, tier. He ignored it, focusing on the diagnostic panel at the base of the core. It was covered in glowing symbols. Most were familiar, but some flickered like they didn't want to be read. System overload, the panel's translator read. Energy. Breach possible? Ethan frowned. "Okay, let's calm you down," he muttered to the core. He started tapping in commands, sealing off some circuits and opening others. The golden rings around the core began to slow. That was a good sign at least, he thought so. Then the panel beeped. Not a normal beep, but a long, deep tone that made the air vibrate. The symbols changed, rearranging themselves into a warning Ethan had never seen before. "Dimensional lock disengaged," the translator said. Before Ethan could react, a shockwave burst from the core. It knocked him backward. Tools scattering across the floor, the air shimmered and the space around. The core bent, like reality itself was folding in on itself. Alarms began to scream. Red lights flashing. Half the alien crew ran for the door. The other half froze in place, their eyes wide with terror. The captain grabbed Ethan by the arm. "What did you do?" "I didn't touch anything," Ethan shouted back. But deep down, he wasn't so sure. The core's light grew brighter, so bright it hurt to look at. A black crack appeared in the air beside it. It wasn't on the core's surface, it was in space itself. The crack widened, spilling out shadows that seemed to move on their own. And then, without warning, 5 crew members simply vanished. One moment they were standing near the wall. The next, they were gone. No sound, no flash, just gone. Ethan's stomach dropped. The captain shouted orders, but no one seemed to hear. The sound of the alarms faded into the background as something else filled the air. A voice, deep and distant, speaking in a language Ethan didn't know. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The shadows spilling from the crack began to take shape. First tall, thin outlines, then armor, then faces. They could be called faces. They were pale, with black eyes like endless holes. Their armor shimmered like liquid metal, shifting with every move. The tallest one stepped forward, tilting its head at Ethan. The alien crew backed away, their skin turning pale blue with fear. Ethan heard one of them whisper, "The first ones." He didn't know what that meant, but the way they said it made his blood run cold. The tall figure spoke, its voice like an echo in his skull. "Finally, you are here." Ethan froze. "Me? I think you've got the wrong guy." But the figure didn't respond. Behind it, the crack pulsed, and more figures stepped through. They didn't attack, but their eyes never left him. The captain moved closer to Ethan, whispering urgently, "Whatever you've done, human, You have brought something on board that should not exist." Ethan's mouth went dry. The figure took one step closer, and the core's light flared again. The last thing Ethan saw before everything turned white was the shadow's hand reaching toward him. Ethan's vision blurred as the light faded. His ears rang like someone had fired a gun next to his head. When his sight cleared, the figures were still there. Standing too still, like statues carved from moonlight, one of them turned its head. Slowly, as if smelling the air, its black eyes fixed on him again. Ethan felt the weight of that stare press against his chest. Like invisible hands pushing him down, the captain barked an order for security. But before the guards could reach Ethan, the tallest figure moved faster than anything he had ever seen. One moment, it stood by the crack. The next, it was right between him and the armed aliens. A ripple ran across its armor. The weapons in the guards' hands melted into useless lumps of metal. Steam rising from their fingers, the alien crew stumbled back, fear painted across their faces. The figure's voice slid into Ethan's mind without crossing the air. "Not him, he is ours." The words made no sense to him, yet he understood every one. His pulse quickened, his brain screaming at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The other figures began to spread out, circling the room, their movements smooth, deliberate, each step making the air vibrate faintly. Ethan noticed they avoided the core, but kept glancing at it. Like hunters guarding a trap, they didn't want to spring too soon. The captain tried to demand answers, but his voice cracked. Halfway through the sentence, one of the figures tilted its head as if amused. Then, in a blur, it vanished and reappeared right in front of him, whispering something that made the captain go pale and step back without another word. Ethan swallowed hard, every instinct screaming that he had caused this, even if he hadn't meant to. "Look, I don't know what you want," she said, his voice trembling. "I was just fixing a machine." "Cha." The tall figure leaned closer until its shadow fell over him. "Machines remember their makers," it replied. And for a second, Ethan thought he saw the golden rings around the core react. Turning faster, the hum deepening. Suddenly, the crack in the air shuddered, pulsing like a heartbeat. The lights in the room flickered violently. One of the figures turned toward the tier, its voice sharp and urgent. Though Ethan couldn't understand the words, the leader's head snapped toward him. "It opens further, and you will see why your kind was hidden from this war." Ethan felt a hand grip his shoulder firm, cold pulling him toward the exit. It wasn't the captain, it was the leader itself, guiding him out like a prisoner or a prized possession. The alien crew pressed against the walls, not daring to block the path. Some looked at Ethan like he had betrayed them, others like they pitied him. The ship's corridors seemed darker now, the hum of the core replaced by a low, distant roar that followed them. Ethan's boots echoed on the floor, but the figure made no sound at all as it moved. The scent of ozone filled the air, sharp and electric. When they reached the observation deck, Ethan realized the crack was not just in the engine room anymore. Through the wide glass window, he could see space itself ripple far beyond the ship. Like a wound spreading across the stars, the figure stood beside him, its black eyes reflecting the shifting void. "It was not supposed to happen," it said softly, "but now that it has, you must choose whether it ends with you." Ethan's throat felt dry, his eyes locked on the impossible sight outside the glass. The crack was wider now, threads of black light spiraling out like roots searching for something to grip. Stars on the other side flickered and vanished as if being swallowed. The alien crew on the deck kept their distance, whispering among themselves, their voices sharp with fear. But no one dared speak to him directly. The tall figure didn't move, its gaze fixed on the wound in space, the silence between them stretched until Ethan couldn't bear it. "What is it?" he asked. The figure turned slightly, the motion slow, deliberate. "A doorway," it said. One your kind was never meant to open. Ethan tried to speak, but his words died when the figure added, and now that it is open. Others will come. Before Ethan could ask who the others were, the floor shook, not like turbulence, but a deep, rolling impact that rattled the glass and made the deck lights flicker. Distant alarms began to wail again. The captain stormed onto the deck, his face pale. They're boarding through the breach. His voice cracked. Security teams can't hold them. Ethan felt his stomach twist. The boarding party wasn't from the figures group. These were different. Hostile. The kind that didn't walk in calmly, but tore through metal like it was paper. Distant thuds echoed through the corridors, screams following a second later. The figure's black eyes narrowed. They smell the tear. They come to feed. The captain glared at Ethan like all of this was still his fault. Human, get off my ship before you doom us all. But the figure stepped between them. Its voice a cold echo. He leaves when I decide. The captain's jaw tightened. But he didn't argue. The deck doors burst open, and a creature unlike any Ethan had seen before crawled through. Its body all bone and muscle, its mouth lined with teeth that seemed to go too deep. It moved like a shadow given shape, and the moment it spotted Ethan, it lunged. Ethan stumbled back, hands up. But before the thing could reach him, the tall figure moved in a blur. One strike, and the creature dissolved into black smoke. The deck smelled of burnt metal. The crew backed away. Muttering prayers in their language, the figure turned to Ethan, its voice low but firm. You are the only one who can close it, and they will not stop until you are theirs. Ethan shook his head, his heart pounding. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a hero. The figure leaned closer, its words like ice in his mind. You were chosen the moment you touched the core. The deck shook again, this time harder, and somewhere deep in the ship, something roared. A sound so alien and wrong it made Ethan's skin crawl. He looked at the crack outside, was pulsing. Faster now, like a heartbeat about to burst, and he realized there might not be much time left. The roar echoed again, deeper this time, vibrating through the metal floor. Ethan felt it in his bones. The alien crew was scattering in every direction now, their eyes wide, some clutching strange weapons. Others carrying glowing crystals like they were more valuable than their own lives. The captain shouted orders, but no one seemed to listen. Panic was already winning. The tall figure gripped Ethan's arm, pulling him toward the corridor. We must reach the core, it said. Its voice a cold thread through the chaos. Ethan tried to resist, but another impact shook the ship. Throwing them both against the wall, sparks rained down from a broken light above. Somewhere behind them, a metal door slammed shut, sealing off part of the deck, and the screams on the other side cut off just as quickly. They pushed forward, moving fast, the sound of claws scraping metal following close behind. Ethan risked a glance over his shoulder. A shadow moved along the ceiling, too fast to see clearly. Then it dropped, a long, twisted shape with too many legs. Its head split open in a silent scream. Ethan froze. But the figure didn't hesitate, lifted one hand, and the thing crumpled mid-leap, hitting the ground in a heap that melted into black liquid when they reached the lift to the engine room. 2 alien guards were already there, blocking the doors. They pointed their weapons at Ethan. No humans near the core. One hissed. The figure stepped forward, its armor rippling, and the guards lowered their guns without a word, their faces pale. Ethan didn't know if it was fear or respect. The lift doors slid shut, and for a moment, there was silence except for the hum of the machinery. Ethan's breathing was loud in his own ears. Why me? He asked quietly. The figure didn't look at him because the core responds to you. It will obey your touch. Ethan shook his head. I don't even understand how it works. The figure finally turned. You don't need to understand. You only need to act. The lift stopped with a sharp jolt, the doors opening to reveal the engine room bathed in a pulsing red light. The crack was larger now, spilling shadows that writhed and twisted like living smoke, the golden rings around. The core were spinning faster, their hum louder, deeper, almost angry. As they stepped inside, the floor shook again. But this time, it wasn't an attack, it was the core itself reacting to their presence. The figure placed something in Ethan's hand, a small, glowing device, shaped like a spiral. When the time comes, place it on the heart of the core. Ethan stared at it, and then what? The figure's black eyes met his. Then you either save your world or lose it with the rest. The heat coming off the core was stronger now, waves of it hitting Ethan's face. Sweat ran down his neck. The shadows pouring from the crack twisted and curled in the air like they were searching for something. Or someone. The tall figure stepped forward, its armor shifting as if preparing for a fight. "Stay close," it said, its voice colder than before. Ethan gripped the spiral device tighter, his fingers trembling. The hum of the core grew so loud it drowned out his own heartbeat. The golden rings spun faster until they were nothing but blurs. The crack widened with a sound like tearing metal. And in its center, a swirling storm of light and darkness churned, pulling at the air around them before Ethan could second-guess himself. The figure pushed him toward the tier. The pull grew stronger, dragging his body forward. His boots slid. On the metal floor, his chest tightened as the swirling light filled his vision. The moment he crossed the edge, the world shattered. He stumbled forward onto ground that wasn't really ground. It was like walking on glass with clouds moving far below. The sky above was a fractured mirror, shards of strange colors shifting. With every step, sound was strange, here too sharp, too clear. Every breath he took echoed in his head. The figure appeared beside him without walking. Simply there, like it had always been. Ethan turned slowly, his eyes catching movement in the distance. Fragments of broken worlds floated in the air, pieces of mountains, torn buildings, even rivers that spilled water into nothingness. The spiral device in his hand began to pulse, a faint blue light beating in rhythm with something deep in this place. "It calls you," the figure said. Ethan swallowed hard. "What is it calling me to?" The figure's gaze shifted toward the far horizon, where a massive storm of light and shadow boiled. Lightning flashing inside it in shapes that almost looked like faces. They began walking, or at least moving, because here each step seemed to cover more distance than it should. Shapes moved in the mist below them, whispering his name in dozens of voices. Ethan tried not to look, but one shadow rose higher, forming a long, thin hand that reached toward him. He stumbled back, the figure's arms snapping out, striking the shadow and making it burst apart. "Into smoke, do not listen to them," the figure warned. "They know what you are here to do." Ethan's breath came fast, his grip on the device tightening, somewhere deep inside. He already feared what that might be, and feared even more that the figure might be right. The storm ahead grew larger with every step, its edges swirling like giant claws scraping the sky. Flashes of light inside it showed glimpses of other places, cities, forests, oceans, but they were twisted, bent, wrong. Ethan felt the pull in his chest growing stronger, like the spiral device was guiding him straight into the heart of it. When they reached the edge, the ground fell away into nothing. At the very center floated a massive sphere of living light, its surface shifting between gold and black, sometimes smooth, sometimes rippling like water. Ethan's knees felt weak. The hum in the air was so deep it rattled his bones. The tall figure stepped closer, its voice softer now. "This is the heart of the breach." Ethan stared at it, unable to look away. "So I just put this thing on it?" he asked, his voice thin. The figure shook its head slowly. "Not so simple. human. The heart will close only for one who is bound to it. When you touched the core, you became that key. Ethan's throat tightened. And what happens to me if I do it? The figure's black eyes held no kindness. You remain here forever. The words hit harder than any blow. His mind raced, thinking of Earth, of the life he had before this job, of how small and ordinary. His problems had seemed there's no other way. He asked, but the figure didn't answer, just looked toward the swirling storm. The whispers rose again from below, hundreds of voices calling his name, some gentle, some mocking, some sounding like people he knew. Ethan clenched his jaw, trying. To block them out, the figure stepped aside, leaving him a clear path to the edge. Decide quickly, it said, for they are already coming. Ethan looked back at the shattered landscape, at the endless pieces of broken worlds drifting through the air. Then at the heart glowing before him, the device in his hand pulsed. Faster, almost like it could feel his hesitation. The ship, the crew, maybe even his own world, all of it, hung on what he chose in the next breath. Ethan's fingers tightened around the spiral device. The storm's light washing over his face. The voices below grew louder, some pleading, some screaming. He took one shaky breath and stepped toward the heart. The pull was so strong now, it felt like the ground itself was pushing him forward. The tall figure watched in silence, unmoving, the golden and black light of the heart reflected in its armor. Ethan reached the edge, the hum filling his head until it drowned out everything else. He raised the device, the blue glow spilling across his hands. For a moment, he hesitated. The image of Earth flashing in his mind, skies clear, oceans calm. People walking without fear. Then the memory shifted, the crack above it, shadows spilling down. His decision was already made. He pressed the spiral into the heart. Light exploded, not out, but inward, pulling him in. His body felt weightless. Every nerve in his skin alight. He thought he heard the figure's voice in his mind. Not cold this time, but almost. Proud, it is done. The light faded. And the Zalari dawn hung in normal space once more. The crack gone, the stars steady. The alien crew cheered in relief. But Ethan was not there. On the coms, a faint voice broke through the static. Tell them it worked. But this place? It's not empty. The signal faded, somewhere beyond the edge of known space. Ethan walked across a sky made of shattered glass, strange shapes following just out of sight, their eyes glowing in the dark. And for the first time, he wondered if closing the breach had only opened another